All right, let's dive into a source document that makes a pretty wild claim. It says it holds the scientific proof that could completely upend everything we think we know about reality. It argues the universe isn't at all what it seems. So let's take a good, hard look at the evidence it's putting on the table. Right out of the gate, the source, which is called the Scientific Indictment, hits you with this warning. It's basically saying, hey, this isn't just another theory or some sci-fi story. It's framing the information inside as a key, a tool to unlock your mind from a reality it says has been built for you. It's not just knowledge, it's an awakening you can't undo. And there it is, the central idea, the whole shebang. The source is arguing directly against that old-school view of a cold, random, chaotic universe. Instead, it's pushing this idea that the entire cosmos is basically a single living organism. And not just living, but conscious. And get this, actively learning and evolving. And that's the big question, right? You hear a claim like that, and the first thing you think is, okay, show me the proof. Well, the source insists it has exactly that. And not from philosophy, not from faith, but from the actual work of scientists it calls heretical. It even sets up its argument like a legal trial, built around 3 key witnesses. So, before we get to the witnesses, let's be super clear on the 2 ideas going head-to-head here. On one side, you have the standard materialist view, a universe of dead stuff, random chance, and chaos. But on the other side, you've got what the source calls the Gnostic truth, a universe that's alive, that vibrates with intelligence, that has a deep underlying order. This is the fundamental battle of ideas we're about to jump into. Okay, so witness number 1 for the prosecution against the dead universe is Dr. Masaru Emoto. He was a Japanese researcher, and his work was all about proving that water itself can hold on to consciousness. The way he did this was actually beautiful in its simplicity. Emoto would take samples of pure, distilled water and just expose them to different things. Words taped to the container, different kinds of music, even just focused human thought. Then he'd flash freeze the water. The whole point was to see if that information, that intention, would physically change the water's structure when it formed into ice crystals. And the results from positive vibes, or what the source calls coherent frequencies, were just stunning. Water that was exposed to words like love or thank you consistently froze into these gorgeous, incredibly complex, and perfectly symmetrical crystals. Just beautiful. But then they flipped the script. When water was exposed to negative or chaotic frequencies, like the phrase, I hate you, it was a completely different story. The water either wouldn't form crystals at all, or it would create these ugly, distorted, broken-looking shapes. All that beautiful geometric order was just gone. So here's the first big conclusion the source draws from all this. Emoto's work is presented as hard evidence that our consciousness isn't just watching the world go by, it's actively programming it. It suggests that water, which remember makes up like 70% of our bodies, is acting like a programmable hard drive, recording every bit of information and intention it comes across. All right, now for witness number 2. We're going to zoom out from water and apply this whole idea of memory to, well, all of nature. And this comes from the work of biologist Dr. Rupert Sheldrake. Sheldrake's big idea is called Morphic resonance. Now, this one's a bit of a mind-bender. The theory is that every single system, whether it's a crystal or an entire species of animal, is shaped by an invisible information field, a morphic field, that has a memory. So when one bird learns a new trick, it changes the field for all birds of that species, making it a little bit easier for every other bird to learn the same trick, even if they're on the other side of the planet. And the source points to a couple of classic examples as proof for this. First, there's a well-known puzzle in chemistry. When a new chemical is made, it's super hard to get it to form crystals for the first time. But after that, it gets easier and easier in labs all over the world, almost like the molecules have learned how to do it. And second, there were these famous experiments where new generations of rats got faster at solving a maze, even though they weren't related to the first group that figured it out. And here is where the source makes a really profound leap. It claims that morphic resonance is the actual physical mechanism behind huge shifts in human consciousness. It suggests that as more and more people wake up or change their awareness, they're not just changing themselves. They are literally rewriting the collective human information field, creating a new, easier-to-access blueprint for an awakened humanity. And that brings us to the third and final witness. The source presents this one as the scientific knockout punch. It involves the work of 2 incredible scientists, biophysicist Dr. Peter Gariaev and Nobel Prize winner Dr. Luc Montagnier, and it focuses on the very code of life itself, our DNA. Okay, you have to follow this one closely because this is where it gets really wild. In what's called the phantom DNA experiment, a team led by Gariaev shot a laser through a tube with a sample of living DNA in it. The DNA scattered the light and made a specific pattern. Standard stuff. Then, and this is the whole point, they took the physical DNA sample out of the tube. Now, according to all known physics, the pattern should have just disappeared, right? But it didn't. The laser equipment kept seeing the DNA as if it was still there. And we're not talking about a little flicker that vanished in a second. According to the source, this energetic phantom of the DNA, this blueprint, stayed detectable in that supposedly empty space for up to 40 days. An energy field just hung there long after the physical thing that created it was gone. Now, I know what you're thinking. A claim like that sounds impossible, easy to just dismiss. But then the source brings in what it calls a stunning confirmation from none other than Dr. Luc Montagnier, the scientist who won the Nobel Prize for discovering the HIV virus. His experiment took this whole idea of an energetic blueprint and pushed it even further. So get this set up. Montagnier took a sealed test tube with a DNA sample inside and put it next to another sealed tube that just had pure water, nothing touching. Then he bathed both of them in a very weak electromagnetic field. Later, when they analyzed the tube of pure water, they were able to reconstruct a 98% identical copy of the DNA from the first tube. The information had somehow teleported from one tube to the other with no physical contact. And what was the frequency of that electromagnetic field he used? 7.83 hertz. Now that number is incredibly specific because it's the Schumann Resonance. It's the planet Earth's own naturally occurring electromagnetic frequency. People call it the Earth's heartbeat. The conclusion the source draws from this experiment is absolutely monumental. It claims that Montagnier basically proved that our planet has its own natural broadcast system for biological information, and that our DNA is designed to be both a transmitter and a receiver on this exact planetary frequency. So let's bring it all home. The source has presented these three witnesses, Emoto, Sheldrake, and the team of Gariaev and Montagnier, as a powerful three-part scientific case against the idea that we live in a dead, random universe. So let's just do a quick recap of the case here. You've got Emoto's work, which is used to argue that our consciousness literally programs the physical world around us. You've got Sheldrake's theory, which points to a kind of collective memory for the entire universe. And then you have the DNA experiments, which are presented as proof that our very life force, which some cultures might call a soul, is a real transmissible energy field. So, the final verdict, according to the Scientific Indictment, brings us right back to that huge claim we started with. The argument is that the evidence, when you put it all together, proves that we don't just live in a universe. We are part of a single, vast, living consciousness. We're not separate little beings. We are resonant nodes in a cosmic information field. And this all leads to the final, really provocative question the source leaves you with. If our consciousness is the programmer, and our bodies and our DNA are the antenna, then the most important question isn't what is reality, it's what reality are you programming? And that is definitely something to think about.